Our guest today is Daniel. Come on down, Daniel, to OTS today.
Hello, hello. I am very old, you know, so you're lucky to have me here. Okay. Oh.
It's an honor to have you, Daniel.
It's an honor to be here. It definitely is.
So can you tell everyone out there, where do you currently live?
Well, right now I live in Babylon.
So have you always lived there?
No, I lived in the beautiful city of Jerusalem. It was so beautiful. The temple there was just so awesome. But
did you worry about what was going to happen?
Well, there was a gentleman by the name of Jeremiah. Me as a kid just thought he was a weirdo. He stood on the streets all the time yelling, "You better repent, you better repent. God's going to destroy Jerusalem." We're like, a weirdo standing on the street corner talking about God coming. I don't know. But Jeremiah was right, and we should have listened to him. We should have listened to him.
So how many kings have you served under?
I've served under 4 kings.
Wow.
Yeah. You know, when Babylon came in, oh my goodness, they just came in and they killed so many people. But they took some of us, and I know it's hard to believe, but when I was young, I was a good-looking lad. I was a good-looking lad. I tell you what, I was taken into the king's court. They wanted me to serve in the king's court. It was really cool. But, you know, they wanted us to eat some of this stuff that, you know, God had told us not to eat this stuff. So I was really troubled. And I prayed, and I said, God, what am I supposed to do?
Wow.
You know, these people are going to, they want me to do this because they want me to look really good. Well, I look really good, and I know it's because of the diet that God gave us. He knew what we were supposed to eat. And so I found a concubine, and I said to him, I said, listen, let me make a deal with you. And, you know, I had gotten into their good graces. I was behaving. I did what I was supposed to. And I said, listen, let me make a deal with you. Let me go a certain number of days here eating what my God said we should eat.
Yeah.
And if after that period of time, if I don't look as good as these guys that are eating all this stuff and drinking all this stuff that you want them to, then I'll do what you want. But give me a chance.
Yeah, I hear you. So what kind of king was King Nebuchadnezzar? I'm sorry, I'm butchering the poor guy's name.
Nebuchadnezzar.
Nebuchadnezzar,
Yeah.
That's right.
Well, when I started eating what my God said to eat, I looked better. Me and my friends, I had 3 friends there, Meshach, Shadrach, and Abednego, and that's the name that King Nebuchadnezzar gave them. I won't bore you with the names that they had in Jerusalem, but we looked just as good. We actually looked better than the king's people. And so the guy said, hey, listen, you must be serving a good God. And you know, God used me to really show these Babylons about God. And you ask about Nebuchadnezzar, well, he was a proud guy. And
Really?
I know the Bible says pride goes before fall, and I tried to tell him, because he really listened to me, but he was so proud. He thought he was so good. And you know, one night he had a dream. And he had all these wise men and all these magicians because he thought they were the right kind of people. And he went to them and he said, tell me what my dream was and tell me what it means, because it really troubled him, troubled him.
So what was the obstacles that you dealt with in Babylon when you first arrived there?
Well, just so many pagans. They had so many different gods. And I knew that all the gods that they had were so false. And, you know, Nebuchadnezzar had this dream, and nobody could tell him what the dream was. Now, they kept saying, oh, tell us what the dream is, and we'll tell you what it means. And he goes, what do you think, I'm a fool? Remember, he was pretty proud.
Yeah.
And he goes, I ain't telling you that. If you're so good, you can tell me what you dreamed, and you can tell me what it means. Well, none of them could. And you know what? He was going to have them all killed.
Really?
He put out an order, kill every wise man, every magician, there for the birds, kill them all. Well,
so you were able to get pretty tight with this king.
Yeah, because when I heard that they were going to be killed, I went to the king and I said, listen, let me go and pray. and let me tell you what your dream was, and let me tell you what it means. And he goes, okay, you think you're so smart, I won't kill those guys right now.
Okay.
And so I went and I prayed to my God.
Wow. That's
And I
amazing.
said, God, please tell me what this dream was and tell me what it means. And you know what my God did?
What?
He answered my prayer. He answered my prayer.
Fantastic.
You know, the next day I went back and I told Nebuchadnezzar, and his dream was this statue. And you know what? It all was prophetic, and it's all come true. But Nebuchadnezzar was so excited that I could tell him what his dream was and what it meant. He made me one of his rulers.
Wow.
Yes. And you know, one time when I was out, some of his guys got to him, because remember I told you he was proud.
Yeah.
And they said, you know, Nebuchadnezzar, you are so good. You need a golden statue. They built a golden statue for this guy.
Wow.
Solid gold. Can you
Wow.
imagine that? And then they said, listen, you're such a good king. Everybody should bow down and pray to you.
Wow.
Well, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, they knew better than that. They knew that they shouldn't pray to a false god. And you know what? They didn't do it.
Wow. So did he have another dream ever?
Well, he had several dreams, but let me finish telling you about these guys, because this was terrible. I was away, so I couldn't help them. I was off in another area, and all of a sudden, the king said, throw these guys in the furnace.
So you were able to help him out?
No, I wasn't even there. When I heard about it later on, I was like, oh my goodness, I wished I'd been there. But you know what? Somebody better than me was there.
Yes.
God was with them. Do you know that Nebuchadnezzar said, heat that furnace 7 times what I normally heat it? And the soldiers tied my friends up, tied Shadrach and Meshach and Abednego, tied them up and was going to throw them in the furnace. And you know what Shadrach and Meshach said? They said, you know what, King? If my God doesn't save me, that's okay, because I still know he's my God. Can you believe the faith? The
Wow.
faith that they had? But you know what? God saved them.
So he had their back.
Oh my goodness, he had their back. They went in that, these soldiers that threw him in the furnace keeled over dead because of the heat. Just plop, they died. But Shadrach and Meshach just walked around in the furnace, walked around the furnace. And you know what? The king said, how many men did you throw into that furnace? And they said, we threw 3. And he goes, well, I see 4. Do you know that was our Messiah?
Wow.
That was God in there with them, protecting them. They came out of that furnace. They weren't even singed. Their hair wasn't singed. Their beards weren't singed. They just walked out of the furnace.
So were people like amazed or scared?
Do you know that Nebuchadnezzar said, you must be serving a mighty God? You know, and that was amazing that God showed his power. But you know what? Nebuchadnezzar was still proud. He forgot all about that. And later on in his years, do you know he built and he said, look what I've built. Because he was a proud man. He goes, look what I've built.
So he
Look
never
what
learned
I've
a
done.
lesson, huh?
He never learned a lesson. And you know what? I said to Nebuchadnezzar, I'm telling you right now, you are going to be grazing in the field like a cattle. You're going to eat grass. You're going to have the dew falling on you. This kingdom's going to be taken away from. Do you know 20 months later, all of a sudden he's up on the roof of his kingdom declaring, look what I've done, look what I've done. And he immediately became like an animal. And they drove him out of the kingdom and he grazed in the fields. But do you know he came to his senses?
Really?
Even as he's grazing in the fields, he came to his senses. And when he came to his senses and realized how powerful God was, do you know God restored him?
Wow. That's amazing.
Restored him to the kingdom. Restored him walking. God, and Nebuchadnezzar really believed in the one true God after that. God just worked such miracles in that man's life.
That's an amazing story.
I tell you.
So what happened with the next king?
Well, the next king was his son,
Really?
Belshazzar.
Was he
And
worse?
you would have think that he would have learned from his father. You know he was around when all this happened
Yeah.
because he was in charge when his father was out grazing around with the animals. But no, he actually took the golden mugs and the golden stuff out of the temple of Jerusalem
Wow.
and used them at a banquet, just defiled them. And it was just like,
Wow.
aha, look what I'm doing. I got their king's stuff and he doesn't mean anything. All of a sudden, a hand started writing on the wall. That's all it was a hand. There was a hand, no body attached to it, a hand, and it wrote on the wall. Well, Belshazzar was scared to death, and he wanted to know, what does that say?
So what did he do?
Well, he asked again. He hadn't learned any lessons. He asked his magicians and his chanters and his wise men, and they're all like, I don't know, I've never seen anything written on a wall like that before. I don't know what it is. And somebody said, you know what? Your father had a very wise man. That was me. And I don't mean to be prideful, because I tell you what, it wasn't me. It was God.
Yes.
It was God that did everything through me. I did not do a thing, but he called for me. And he said, tell me, what's that writing on the wall? And all of a sudden, God gave me and you know what it said? It said, this day your kingdom will be taken from you.
Wow.
Belshazzar said, who do you think I am? I'm the king of Babylon. But do you know that night he was killed? Somebody put a sword right through him, and the Medes took over Babylon.
Wow.
And King Darius came to the throne. Now,
What kind of king was he?
again, these kings had so many gods, they didn't know who to worship. They didn't know what to do, but they had some problems. Pride. They thought they were so good. And Darius really liked me. Him and I were tight, man. He talked to me. I talked to him about my God, and he was pretty receptive to God's message. And I told him what I had done to Belshazzar and what I'd done to Nebuchadnezzar, and he listened. You know, he really listened, and he really liked me, and he really was about to really believe in God. And then his wise men got to him.
Oh, no.
They're like, oh, King Darius, you are such an awesome king. Everybody should pray to you. Well, I know that's not right.
Yes.
And he really knew it was not right. But you know what? You're a king, and you kind of, you got these proud people over top of you. And so he goes, oh, that sounds like a really good thing. They want everybody to bow down to me. I'm just so wonderful. Well, I wouldn't bow down to him. But he signed they tricked him. They tricked him. They put this in front of him and said, this is a decree. You got a decree that if they don't fall down and worship you, you're going to throw them in the lion's den. Well, that's a terrible death. Have you ever been mauled and roared and
No,
tied?
I have.
Yes, it's bad. I've seen it. Blood everywhere, pieces of skin, bones,
Frightening.
Frightening, yes. So that was a terrible thing. But he signed it.
Wow. So he didn't come to his senses either, apparently. King
No,
Darius.
because you know what? Those people were jealous of me.
Wow.
They were jealous, and that's why they had him do it, because they knew that I would not bow down to that king. I loved Darius. He was a good guy.
So my question to you is, did he ever come to God?
Yes, and let me tell you what brought him to God. Those men tattled on me, because I didn't pray. I opened my windows and I prayed to my God, because that's the only God that can answer any questions. He's the only one that has power. They were worshiping fish and frogs and
Wow.
lice and all sorts of weird things, and we know that none of that can bring about a miracle.
No.
So I was praying, and I'm like, God, protect me, They told on me.
Really?
And Darius came to me and he said, oh, Daniel, my friend, I'm going to have to throw you in the lion's den.
Wow.
What a thing to hear from your friend,
Yeah.
Well, he said, Daniel, may your God protect you. And Darius was really close to believing. He was really close. And he said, please, please let your God protect you. And he threw me in the lion's den.
Wow.
Have you ever looked up and seen a hungry lion looking
No,
at you?
I've never seen a hungry lion.
Oh my gosh, when they open their mouths, the big teeth, and that tongue, and it's scary.
So how did you survive that?
Do you know, all of a sudden there were angels in that lion's den?
Wow.
And you know what they were doing? They were holding the mouths closed to the lions. It was so funny. funny. The lions were really perplexed. They got those things with angel wings and stuff holding their mouth closed, and they couldn't hurt me. They couldn't do a thing. They were so mesmerized by these angels. They just stayed there. And you know, the next morning, Darius ran to the lion's den, and he opened it up. And I said, "Hey there, Darius, it's been a wonderful night here." No, I didn't really say that. But he was so excited to see me. And he said to me, "Well, what happened?" And I said, "My God, the only true, powerful God protected me. He closed those lions' mouths and he wouldn't let them eat me." And Darius was so excited. Oh, he just hugged me and he just said, "Daniel, your God is the one true God." And do you know he declared that my God was the God of that area?
That's fantastic. So
And
you
you
finally
know,
became a believer.
He did. And you know, it wasn't me. It wasn't anything that I did. And I give all the glory and the power to God. You know, he is such a powerful God. He answers all my questions.
So besides the whole Darius situation, what else is going on now?
Well, I have been troubled of late. I just keep having these visions. I keep having these dreams. I've written them all down. If you want to know all the dreams and the visions I've had, they're written down in my book of Daniel. Daniel, I've written that book, man. Not that I want to brag about my writing ability, but I wrote the book of Daniel, and it would really be helpful if you've read it. It's pretty easy to read. I didn't write it in any weird language. But I've written my visions down there. And you know, the dream that Nebuchadnezzar dreamed, it all came true.
Fantastic.
Because that was his kingdom, and then his son's kingdom, and then the Medes and the Persians. When I told King Nebuchadnezzar about that, he's like, nobody's going to take over my kingdom. But he was, you know, I don't know whether he's surprised or not because he's not around. But he, all of that dream was prophetic. It's come true.
Wow. So,
But there's dreams that there's visions that I've had that are of the end time. When God is going to come back, when Jesus is going to come back.
so if there's any kind of message that you want to give to our listeners out there, what would that message be?
That prayer really works. And a consistent prayer. You know, I don't just pray when a need comes up. Man, I write those prayers down and I pray over and over and over again till God either answers my prayer or makes me realize that's not the right thing for me to be praying. Because, you know, sometimes our wants and our needs kind of intertwine with each other. But prayer. And you know what? Since my other visions have come true, these visions of end times are going to come true also, guys. I'm telling you that the Christ is going to come back. You know, Christ, when he was crucified, he came back down and got me. He came down and got me and took me to heaven with him. Don't ask me how I got here, but just like that, you know. I hope to be going, because it was a really cool place up there. You just can't imagine. Oh, streets of gold, big pearl gates. Yeah, just fabulous. So after this podcast, I'm going to go back because, you know, I don't want to stay here. But I'm telling you, all of those dreams, they're going to come true. Christ is going to come back. He's going to come back halfway in the sky, and all of you people are going to be raised up to believe in him. And the graves are going to open up, and the believers are going to come out of those graves, and they're going to meet Christ in the sky. And there's that 7 years of tribulation. I have prophesied. My visions have told about the 3 years of peace, and then that 1 year in between, or the half a year in between, and then the other 3.5 years, and all of that stuff. That's going to come true.
Yes.
That's going to come true. Just like, you know, Nebuchadnezzar didn't know when all that stuff about his statue was going to come true, but it came true because it comes true in God's time.
Yes.
But you know, these visions bother me. I keep having visions and dreams. I don't know what they all mean. And maybe God doesn't want me to know what they all mean until they happen.
Yeah.
But I know that he is the God that answers prayer. And that's why I've written the book of Daniel. I've written that book of Daniel for you to see that, you know, when I was taken captive, that was a terrible time. I left my hometown. I left my parents. I was in a strange country. But the one thing I knew I had, God. And he was with me. And he answered my prayers. And you know what? The last king that I served under was King Cyrus. Cyrus the Great. As you can tell by his name, he was another conceited king.
Wow.
But he let the Jews go back to Jerusalem and start rebuilding the city.
Fantastic.
Now, Cyrus was not a God believer. He didn't really believe in the God. And I showed him in the books where it said that was going to happen, and he was going to be the one to do it. And he was like, whoa, did you just write that? And I'm like, no, I didn't just write that. That's been there. That's a prophecy. And you, an unbeliever of God, has just fulfilled that prophecy.
Wow.
So I'm telling you, these prophecies that are out there, these things written in Revelations, these things written in Daniel, I've written Daniel, okay? And if you have a good commentary, you can get it all explained for you. You know,
Yeah, I know
it's got
these
it.
days,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, it's right down there. They write it in clear language, and they tell you what's already happened,
Yeah.
okay? But prayer really works. Don't ever, ever go against God, because he will protect you. No matter what is happening, he will be there.
Fantastic.
You know, yeah, my friends were really surprised that they got saved from that furnace.
Yeah.
But they knew that whether they got saved from that furnace or whether they died and went to be with him, he was with them. And so
Wow.
they faced death very bravely, very bravely.
So is there any final words for you, Daniel?
No, just read the Bible. It's
Yes.
got a fabulous bunch of really good stories in there.
Yes.
Read my story. My goodness, read my
It's a
story.
great story.
Yeah, read my story. Not a hard book to read. Read my story. And above all else, pray. Pray, pray, pray.
Amen.
I tell you what. Well, you know what? I thank you for having me.
Thank you for coming.
Maybe we could open it up for questions if any
Yeah,
of your
sure.
viewers have any questions.
Is there any questions out there from the audience?
Oh, well.
Wow.
They
We
must
scared
have
you
all,
guys?
they all must have read my story.
I guess they have.
Okay, well, I'm going to go back to heaven. That's the best place to be. You all need to read. You need to pray. And maybe you can join me. We'll see you later.
Thank you, Daniel. This is OTS Podcast.
Thank you,
And
thank
God
you.
bless everyone out there.